Okay, I want to show you these, but first I want to show you, this was in a kind of a little side thing that I didn't show you, but this is actually a book that Bart does, I don't know what you would call it. I don't want to show it until I can show it, but he, you know, sets up books for people. You know, that's what he does for a living, is, you know, does the... So if somebody has something that they want to print, they give him the text, and then he creates the books to publish them. And this is a book of poetry that he published. And it's obviously in Polish, but look how beautiful the front is with the colors. And the leaves falling. Now look at the sides. I hope that you're going to be able to see this. See the leaf falling? How amazing is that? One more time. That's amazing, and I want a book like this. I will have some kind of a book that has falling things, something like that, because that to me is amazing. And just look at the how beautiful it is, even when it's not. We have these kind of moving with the 80, you know, the page number, or those kind of stay the same with the feathers falling. Let's see if it does it on the back side. Yep, though it's more, I love how this particular sequence ends. Down at the bottom, it turns over. That to me is amazing. The whole thing looks so clean and so classic and so gorgeous. I mean, that's a beautiful self-published book. Yeah, that's just amazing. Whoops. That shows his last name because obviously it's his work in terms of creating the book. But yeah, absolutely stunning, and I had to show that off because that's so cool. Absolutely cool. Okay, so I want to take a look here real quick at the, and this doesn't take long because it's Lenormand. I know this is more, and there's book involved, but I'm just looking at this as a Lenormand deck. So I just want to quickly, obviously there has been names that have been changed. We have the number of the Lenormand card, and we have the playing card association in the upper left hand corner. So here we have, let me just see what we have in the little white book. So they call this a modern reworking of the Lenormand fortune-telling cards, bringing this 160-year-old tradition into the 21st century. It says that while it stays very close to the classic images, it also adds fresh details, modern reworking, drawing on mythology, and lush scenes to give the cards new life and deeper dimension. So it talks about Lenormand as being powerful in its simplicity: a man, a woman, a house, a tree, the sun, the moon, the clouds. These are images that appear in dreams. These are very powerful, simple, key images. And she says that the true genius of Lenormand is that we're not invited to interpret these pictures any way we wish. Just the opposite. The tradition gives us distinct meanings and clear instructions on how these work in combination with each other. Such precise instructions give the cards a special value in fortune telling. It does talk about how it differs. It's changed some of the names. And some of the images are altered as well. It says, despite the fresh titles and the varied images, the meanings remain true to the Lenormand tradition. Anyone who knows this tradition will recognize most of the keywords given below. And so they said, well, then why change it? It says just to give new dimension. Hermes is still a rider on the horse, but the fact that his steed is a winged Pegasus gives him a special power. There are 4 extra cards, it says, which have completely new images. These 4 are actually just variations on cards 28 and 29. The man and the woman, in fact, 2 of them are 28 and 29 facing the other way. This is because the man and the woman traditionally refer to romantic relationships, and we wanted to be inclusive of lesbian or gay couples. To read for a gay man, you can choose to remove the regular 29, the woman, and replace it with the alternative man card, and vice versa with the woman card. The other 2 cards are 37 and 38 with Osiris and Isis, and these are us at our highest, best. I quite like that, and those are ones I actually probably will keep in. So So there we have it. So it's the intention. Now there's a whole book on this where you can, I think, go really deep into reading in maybe in a more oracle fashion. But at the root of it is still Lenormand, and it can still be. Would I recommend this as a beginner reading Lenormand? No, because it could get confusing. But if you're comfortable with Lenormand, you just take this out and you read this just like a Lenormand deck, which is what I intend on doing with it. So here we have Hermes the messenger for the rider, who's bringing a message. I mean, it's perfect. The red clover. I love the images on this. The voyage. You know, Robert Place has such a distinct art style, I feel, that and it's very clean and very bold lines that I think is quite lovely. I'm going to have to get one of his decks, tarot decks, but I haven't decided which. The house on the hill. Look at the tree, is the flaming tree. But it's still the tree. The clouds, we have dark and light. We have an angel coming out of it, but it's still obvious to be the clouds. The burning serpent, which is the name of the deck, but it's a snake card. The dead tree instead of the coffin. I actually quite like this change. It works fine for me because we have the tree, which is about well-being and you know growth and stability, roots deep and this kind of thing. And then instead of the coffin, we have the dead tree. So we have that sort of ended. I do quite like that. Yes, it's different, but it's very easy to read that with traditional meanings. The bouquet is gorgeous. The scythe is beautiful. We still have my wheat sheaves. We have a scythe. Yes, we have a woman in there. But again, if you're comfortable with, Lenormand, you still know that this is the scythe. The cat of three tails. So here we have the whip, looking very a Rider-Waite Smithy almost. So here we have the owl and the mouse instead of birds. So that's a little bit different, obviously. I do like to see two birds. It's that kind of chit-chattery communication, light or serious, depending on other cards it talks about. But this is also a thing, can be about difficulties. This can also very much, for me, come up about anxiety. And for a mouse, there's nothing more anxiety producing than a giant owl. So I would prefer this to have been two birds and not added mouse in, but I can certainly read with it. The girl and the boy instead of the child. I think it's cute. I love the fox because look, he's out of his environment, but he's going to have to really think things through in order to, figure out what he needs to figure out. They do have cleverness and daring, but they also have the sociopath in the office, the con artist, that kind of thing. But I do like this because he's out of his comfortable environment, so he's going to have to use his wits. Here we have the bear, mother protection. That is a back off of my cubs kind of protective bear. Here we have the stars. Now this one, obviously we have a full angelic being here, but we have the bright star. We have the star on the shield. So again, I would prefer this just to be stars because I feel like on this one, whereas we have a woman in the scythe, I still feel like it's very clearly about a scythe, and I just like that imagery. I don't think it does anything, reduces the image of the scythe. Whereas this one, I feel like, dominates it with just this little star here. Although we do have a big star here too. But it says the stars, so it's not that complicated. Here we have the stork. The hound for the dog, which I quite like. The tower, very towery. The garden is gorgeous. The mountain, I love this. You can get around this. You can see ways in which you could go this way, or there's probably a path right here. Look at the path. How gorgeous is that? Two paths. This is exactly how I like my path cards. Mice, definitely eating away at things and causing mayhem. The heart. Again, is there other things like the mystical Lenormand? Yes, but it's still clearly the heart. It'll be okay. The gold ring. The book of life. The letter. This is going to Brunswick, Maine, to M.A. Stoker. Here we have the man and the woman going in this direction, and then we have the woman and the man going in this direction. So they've just, oh, I've gone out of screen. So there are two men cards that have simply been horizontally flipped, so that you could have two men who are facing each other. And then there are two women. The man and the woman card number 1 are gorgeous. But then we can have two women that could be facing each other or behind for a same-sex relationship. But we also then have the man and the woman facing each other to be used in a standard traditional deck, or we could do it with the man on the, if it's important to you to have the woman or the man facing in a particular direction, you could also swap this around. This one to me feels right to have them facing like this. I don't know why, it just is. So those are the two that I'll be leaving in, but I love that we have the extra cards then to be able to use a same-sex relationships. Although I will say, again, I've not had any issue with traditional decks. I handle that simply by saying at the get-go, because you don't know. People don't often just say relationships. They don't say a relationship with a woman. You know, that would obviously be strange to have to qualify that. So I will often at the very beginning of my Lenormand say, you know, this is standing in for you. Whoever your significant other is, male or female, will be, you know, by this one. So it's not, and I've never had anybody be offended by that in any way, shape, or form. If somebody's getting a Lenormand reading, they probably know how classic Lenormand works. And so I've not had any issue with using classic decks that only have it like this. However, sometimes I do know, and so when I do, I love that I have these extra cards to add to the situation. So I really do actually like that a lot. And these are gorgeous. So then we have the Lily card. Again, like the Art Nouveau Lenormand, we obviously have a woman who's very much standing and just this one little lily here. I would just like to see lilies, but I can read with it. It says the lilies on the top. Here we have the sun. I quite like this. I don't like faces and suns, but this is quite different. It looks like a gold coin or the old Roman or Greek god or something on there. And then we have the moon with the goddess there. I think that's gorgeous. I love that very, very much. Here we have the key, beautiful. I love that the fish has looks to be like a Greek coin in its, I was going to say its wing, in its fin. So I love that. We have the anchor, gorgeous. We have the rusted cross instead of the cross, but it's beautiful. Then we have the two extra cards of Osiris and Isis. And again, if these were to show up, this would be your sense of your higher self if you were to use these in the deck. Now, most likely because of the meaning of this as your higher self, I would probably only put the one in for the significator, because then what would the higher self be if you weren't reading for the opposite sex or reading for relationships? So I probably would only put these in, I'm thinking, for the actual significator. It also associates this with the diamonds and this with the clubs, which is interesting because that forms, when we have the man and the woman, that forms all the suits. So I do quite like that because you do have then the energy of the 4 suits in play. So there we have a quick walkthrough of the cards. I'm going to go ahead and add this in, although you can get a pre-look at the fact that I have trimmed these down. But in the little white book, she talks about the cards that do have mythological correspondences to them, just so that you can see them. And so first of all, we have Hermes, which is a Greek messenger god of speed, magic, trickery, and inventiveness. We have the flaming tree that's inspired by the green and flaming tree of Celtic mythology that contains spring, summer, and fall. A winter then is seen in the dead tree, which is the coffin card, which is not there. The clouds, we have a muse who's playing a kithara, which is a lyre that was considered to be the first instrument created by Hermes and given to Apollo, and becomes the god, who thus becomes the god of music and poetry. So we have that there. We have the burning serpent, which is not strictly mythological, but it is suggestive of the phoenix being reborn out of the ashes. And here we see the serpent in a stone altar from ancient Israel used for burnt offerings. We have the scythe, which is Demeter, the Greek goddess of grain, holding the scythe used for harvest. People who have watched my videos know what I feel about the scythe with harvest. Let's just see in the little guidebook. Danger, something cut away, change, something sharp, something harvested. Something harvested, number 10. So I'm happy to see that. Here we have the stars, which is the Archangel Michael, who rules the stars in the Christian cosmology. We have the path, which is the shrine for Hecate, goddess of the crossroads. Awesome. Here we have the Book of Life, which is the picture on the right has Artemis, the goddess of nature, the moon, and the mountains here. We have the sun, which is Helios, the Greek titan who ruled the sun, and the moon, who is Selene, the Greek titan of the moon. And then we, of course, have Osiris and Isis, the god of death and rebirth. He holds the pharaoh's symbol of power, and Isis, the Egyptian goddess known as the goddess of 1,000 names, for all the goddesses were seen as local versions of Isis, and she holds an ankh, or the symbol for life. So these are ones that have, these are ones, and here's the burning tree, or the dead tree, which would be winter. So we do have all the seasons. So these are the cards that do have a mythological over the top of this traditional Lenormand card, which you don't have to do anything with, or you can. I'm sure the book goes into that more. She does also talk about how while Lenormand cards were read strictly, you know, it is what it is. You know, it's a coffin if it was a coffin. It's a lily. It's a ring. It's a stork. It was in a time period in which mythology, especially Greek and Roman, were very, very popular. And there is precedence for a deck like that. In fact, there is, which is on my list to pick up. But there is a deck that came out called the Grand Jeu de Lenormand, who has 54 cards filled with mythological and astrological imagery. So there is precedence there, is what I think they are trying to say. So I'm quite happy with this. So I don't have an issue with that being built in. I think it's stunning. Again, you don't have to even touch into that at all. That is still the rider, right? That's still the clouds. That's still the tree. So we don't really have to change anything based on that, but it is the extra layer that's there. So let's go ahead and go back in time before the cards were trimmed and do a reading. And I do apologize, the lighting's a little, oops, I got these mixed up. No, they're right. It throws me off. I don't particularly like decks that where the backing is similar to one of the cards. I just like straight backings, but I thought I had it mixed up. They're quite thick cards. I'll definitely be trimming these, although there's a part of me that wants to just leave them alone. But these are even taller than the Kipper cards. It's even taller than the Gilded Lenormand, and so it makes it very difficult to do a very large spread like a Grand Tableau. Even a 9 card, I'll be interesting. I think a 9 card is probably going to go out of camera. And I'm pretty sure I just filmed this part of it all off camera, so that's fantastic. Which is really sucks because this was actually a really good reading. So I'm just going to go over it again. You've seen me lay these cards. What I decided to do is to read for my higher self, a message from my higher self. And so I went ahead and used Osiris is the male one. I went ahead to use Isis. I really like this idea of a reading from the higher self. Something I am definitely going to incorporate in reading for other people as well, because this could also be a message from your guides. It could be a message from your god or goddess, depending on, you know, or your sense of the divine, if that's something that you want. But for me, I really like that idea of getting, you know, a message from my higher self. And it's a really good, it's very appropriate message. I have a message, which is great because that's what I wanted. I have a message that there were, that I, you know, had some obstacles, clearly had some obstacles, but this, but that I'm moving in the direction of success, and it's brought me happiness, which I definitely believe. And even the key to success, if I even want to read it this way, the key to successfully getting through is to keep that idea of focusing on the small things, focusing on the things that I can control, the small happinesses, those kinds of little joys and things is the key to getting around difficulties and obstacles. But I also do feel like these two just together is that sense of successfully getting over obstacles of late, which is certainly the truth, and that has brought me a measure of happiness even in a difficult situation. So I quite like that. It was very appropriate to recently. I also like this cross where I have here being smart about some burdens, or some, you know, some burdens, not necessarily to do with the obstacles, personal things that are going on, and that I need to be thinking outside of the box to deal with those, and so that is going to cause me to move towards my destiny, move the way that I want to be going to, and to a sense of well-being and health and well-being, which I quite find to be appropriate. I do have the over the top and the bottom, the idea that things have been difficult, but overall I'm strong, and that's how I definitely feel, again, coming out of March. When I go back here, I have that sense of a message about dealing with things smart, looking outside of the box, dealing things differently than I would normally deal with, having brought me some happiness. Because for me, the idea of working through March in a very focused way. Normally I'm very reactive. I wait for something to hit and then I react. And instead in March, because of the Within Without Advice Challenge, I very much deliberately worked day by day in a very focused working on the situation. And it did, that was a complete change around, a clever way of coming at the grief of March, how March will be. And it was definitely successful for me. Not just for getting through March, but I made, because I worked, concerted day-by-day effort on it, I really have come to a lot, moved forward a lot in the whole process, and that was something in my immediate past, so I do like that. Moving forward, I have a successful reaching for the stars despite obstacles that may show up. Life is full of obstacles, but there is rising above that, and that's going to be quite successful moving forward. So I think that is quite lovely as well. So I find these to read very well. I actually did a reading before this for myself, using myself in the middle just as and it was truthfully a little bit too accurate, not to needing to share some private information. It was extremely accurate and it read very, very well. So I'm actually really happy with this deck and how it's reading, just as a Lenormand deck. Yeah, but I'm even using the extra card, which I don't always do. I quite like it. I quite like the idea of getting a message from my higher self and or the divine, if somebody wants a message from the divine. Because sometimes I do a lot of times I do 3 voices reading, and it has to do with somebody's spiritual path. So that just, for me, just gave me a really good idea, just in terms of when that happens. That would be a great way to do that, when somebody was literally trying to connect with their divine and their path, their spiritual path. So I quite love that. So yes, thumbs up. Thank you, Bart, for helping me to get this. And yeah, I'm 100% thrilled with this. And I will come back in just a minute and let you know. I'm going to trim these, but I'm not going to round the edges. And I'm going to use them like that for a little while because I just don't want to mess the edges up. I really hope that this is a good printing and it lines up with this outside very much, because otherwise that's going to clearly suck. So I guess we'll see that in a minute. I don't want to round these if I don't have to. So I'm going to start with, I've been working with a Marseille deck that has pointy corners and it really hasn't bothered me. So I'm going to do that with these first, and then if it really bothers me, I'll get a small corner rounder and round the corners. Okay, you can see that I have taken the same spread, although I see I need to trim this one up a little bit more. Go. You can see how that looks quite different than before. So for example, let's put 3 together, and you can see it chops quite a bit off of the height, which is important. Let me tell you, when reading space is very important to readers. I think deck people need to realize that. And so width-wise, it also takes off quite a chunk. So here would be the original card. Look how much has come off of the top and the sides. So that really does make a difference. That makes a big difference. And kind of hard to see it that way, but it takes off a lot. That space, especially with Lenormand, I think people who are producing Lenormand decks really need to keep in mind that we're doing small or large readings with these, and we need to have the space to put those out, and so not to have huge cards. So now let's say here's my gorgeous Isabel's Lenormand. We have it's actually a little bit thinner than the Isabel, but just a little bit taller, but it's not horrible. So this is much more workable. I'm leaving the corners pointy for now, and we'll see if I can manage to live with them. It's pretty on point with the back, so I was really excited to see that. I trimmed off of the front, and it's pretty on point. There's maybe a little bit of white, but not much, and so I'm really happy with that. I will obviously be doing the edges, but I don't know what color at the moment, but because it's green on this side and purple on this side. So I don't know, but for right now I'm going to leave them pointy. I can shuffle these this way. I shuffle Lenormand quite often like this, and so I just don't want to mess up the clean lines of it. And so for now I'm going to leave it like that, unless the point really starts bothering me, then I might take off just a little bit. I've heard people using nail clippers just to take the sharp point off, but I really liked how Patrick's Marielle was pointy. I almost had wished I had left mine that way. So for right now, I'm just going to leave this because, again, my Marseille deck is this way and it hasn't been bothering me. So that's what I'm doing. Okay, I'm back just for a second. So here they are all trimmed down, well, other than the extra man and woman, which I need to do. So you can kind of see the difference on the back. I don't know what I'm going to do to the sides. I have to do something, but it's when it's laying like this, which is when it's generally stacked, it's green. I'm guessing I'm going to want to go with maybe a darker green here. Purple on this side, but it doesn't sit in a stack like this. So give me your opinions on what you think. And I actually really don't mind the corners as of right now. Again, I'll probably more shuffle them along the lines, side shuffling them, but they're definitely pokey because it's a pretty thick cardstock. It didn't rifle shuffle, it's not a super thin cardstock for rifle shuffling anyway, so, but I can. Well, let's see. I haven't tried it since, Yeah, not that great. It's not really great for rifle shuffling, so I will be shuffling it overhand, which is okay. I have a couple decks like that, and this to me is worth it to kind of keep the integrity of this inner border. And I think it looks really lovely. So let's take a look at the book card and see what we have. Well, we have me and being clever and foxy, and we have new success. So there we go. This, I really am happy with this. I've done a couple readings, just little quick ones and such, just to test it, and it really is quite lovely. It's very clear. And yeah, I'm quite loving it. So there we go. Again, I keep saying goodbye, but keep coming back for more. Bye.